Good morning and welcome to That's My Farm. I'm Michaela DeMott, your guest host, and I am here in Strong City, Kansas, visiting the Mushrush Red Angus Ranch, and I will be speaking to Joe and Connie and their son Daniel about the history of the ranch and why Red Angus. Stay tuned and we'll be back after these messages from our sponsors.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Good morning and welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm here with Connie and Joe Mushrush to talk about the history of the Mushrush Red Angus Ranch. So to start off, tell me a little bit about the history and how you guys got started.
Unlike some ranches that you hear about, we are not an old 100-year-old established ranch that's been in one location. Started fairly recently in the big scheme of things. My dad grew up in town, always had a dream of having a ranch, and so when he and my mother got back from the service in the early 1950s, they went out and basically started from scratch and had a small place and built a house in just from nothing. And so they started out in the 50s. In the middle of the 1950s in this area were a severe drought, and he tells stories about walking down the center of the Cottonwood River because it was dry, and they actually droughted out in the late 50s, and he was forced to go to town in 1960 and get a job. And so for the next 20 years, the ranch was fairly static with that. That's the period of time when I was growing up. And we had a little farm ground and had about 80 cows and would do cattle work on weekends when he was available. And I'd take care of the cattle during the week when I was going to school. And that's just kind of how we went. Went to college at K-State, and that's where I met Connie. And we were married and came home in 1980 and knew that we wanted to continue ranching and had to do everything we could to make enough to make a living and be successful. And so ever since then, like I say, it's been hammered down. We've been expanding and growing as much as we can and running pretty hard. And so that's kind of how we got our start and where we're at.
So speaking of you two, I understand you guys had a little bit of a plan when you guys got married. Talk to me a little bit about that plan and how that's changed.
We did. We had an agreement that we would never live in town, we would never have hogs, and we would never have more than 3 children. And we ended up moving home and going directly to town. And we got hogs to have cash flow, and we never did have 3 children because we went from 2 to 4.
And I understand you guys have 6 kids now.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about how they play a role in your ranch and how they will in the future as well.
Well, when the kids were growing up, they were an integral part of our operation. They made personal sacrifices themselves, even as kids, to help the success of the ranch. And we've always told them that anybody that wanted to come back to the ranch, why? Because that was our dream. We would do anything we could to make that possible. And so if they expressed the interest, we would do something. We didn't know what, but we would figure something out. And so at this point in time, our oldest son, Daniel, is back on the ranch. He's been back for 7 years. Our youngest son, Chris, just returned this last July to join us. And we have another son that is talking about possibly coming sometime in the next 5 years. And so as we look at that, we are not static. We are having to grow and plan for expansion all the time.
All right, thank you guys so much, and we'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information. Tarwater Farm and Home has been family owned and operated since its beginning in 1978. What you need for farm and agriculture, lawn and garden, clothing and footwear, and so much more. You'll be surprised at what you'll find in this huge store. They have what you need and lots of it. So come take a look. You'll discover that customer service is first and foremost. Always has been with the Tarwaters. Tarwater Farm and Home, 4107 North Topeka Boulevard.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm here to talk with Joe and Connie again about why Red Angus. So first off, tell me how you got started with Red Angus.
Idea of Red Angus started back when I was in college. Used to go to Weber Hall Library and instead of studying would do more naps. But in the Weber Library, they had breed association journals from all the breed associations. I used to read all those and became very intrigued with the Red Angus magazine. The Red Angus Association was focused on the commercial cattlemen and their problems rather than standard registered cattle things, and was always, because I had the roots into commercial cattlemen, was always drawn to that and used to read that, and that's why we had the basic premise of Red Angus. And that said, after we had returned from college, like everybody else in the mid-70s, we had gotten some continental cattle because that was the thing to do. And at that point in time, you made your selection by walking into a pen and picking the biggest, stoutest animal you could find. And so, not unlike everybody else, we got into a calving difficulty situation where we were having trouble with the calves out of those bulls, and we were searching for a solution, and naturally remembered the Red Angus stuff I had read about, and that was one of their focuses, was the calving ease, and so gravitated back to that. And because we did have a basic red cow herd, it was a Hereford base, and we had gone to some flowered Simmental bulls at that point in time, and we were wanting to keep the red hide, and so it all fit together very nicely.
And then you guys started off with a handful of stocker calves. Tell me a little bit about that story, about those Red Angus.
When we first came back, we would get cattle out of the southeast, and they were purchased one at a time, and they all weighed the same when they arrived, but there was so much variation in them, and we would actually take those as stockers, and we fed them out here, and then we would sell them a lot of times on the rail at Tyson prior to them selling, but there was the variability by the time you got to the end product was really noticeable.
And so then when it comes to genetics and other things that Red Angus have over other cattle, talk to me a little bit about some of those benefits.
Well, that was basically the start of us maybe an interest in good genetics, because when we saw the variation in the cattle we bought, and we knew that in our own product, our own cattle, we wanted to tighten that down to make them more alike and more predictable. And because of that, it is why we became more interested in the registered side of it, because we were interested in increasing the predictability of those cattle, so we knew what was coming down the road.
So prior to running Red Angus, what did you guys run?
When we first came back to the ranch, we were purchasing little lightweights out of the southeast, and they would be purchased actually one at a time. They all weighed the same thing when they came in, and we would run them as stockers, and then we would finish them out in our feedlot. And by the time they got to the end of their feeding period, there was a lot of variability in their sizes. There was every size, shape, color, and body composition, and we knew that was affecting our ability to be profitable. And we also believed that the Red Angus would give us uniformity not only in type and kind, but also in the ability to predict the end product and add some premium to our cattle.
Thank you. And we'll be back after these messages from our sponsors.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
So good morning and welcome back to That's My Farm. To start off, Joe, tell me about your management practices here on your operation.
We run our cow herd like we expect our commercial customers to run their cow herds. We run them in a commercial situation because we want to see how they will work in that environment. So all the feeding practices and breeding practices are done. Our cows are not pampered at all. We have them tightened down into a 45-day calving season, and use minimal feed. We want to graze as much as we can. We run them in a rotational grazing system on native tallgrass prairie here in the Flint Hills. And so everything we do in management, we keep in the back of our head that they need to, our product is going into a commercial cattle operation, and we need to run ours as close to that as we possibly can. That said, one of the differences between us and the commercial operations are we collect way more data than they do, because we are a data-driven industry in the seed stock industry, and our customers have to know what they are buying. And so we are very data-driven, collect a lot of data points. Every animal in the place is electronically identified, so we can better manage that data. And Connie is the one that kind of spearheads that collection, and so I will defer to her on talking about that.
So yeah, talk to me a little bit about all you do with the data.
We now have about 700 registered cows, both fall and spring calving. And so to keep track of all of the information from birth date, which at that time they get a birth date and a birth weight and an udder score, clear through weaning and yearling and preg check, where the cow gets mature weight and a body condition score assigned to her. There's so much data that we started utilizing the electronic system to increase the efficiency, because I used to have to hand enter everything once I got back into the house, as well as decrease the likelihood of error. And so utilizing the EID, we can do that. The other upside of having that system is that we have some historical data, and we can go back and find some things to, if I'm having trouble sire verifying a calf, or any kind of a data problem, I can go directly back to that system and correct my errors.
So you collect all this data. How do you use that data to better your herd in the future?
One of the things that we have implemented in our herd is parent verification on every animal. And we are rapidly getting to the point where every cow is sire and dam verified. And so the accuracy and the correctness of our pedigrees is one of the benefits. And that gives us an opportunity to take the data that we're collecting: birth weight, weaning weight, yearling weight, mature cow weight, body condition score, whether she was open, whether she stuck AI or was natural service. Take that and use that to put pressure on our cow herd. And so that's what we have been doing with the data.
Thank you. We'll be back after these messages from our sponsors.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com. That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities, big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm here with Joe and his son Daniel, and in our last segment we talked about data collection, and so now I'm interested to see how your guys' data interacts with the genetics in your herd and how you're improving that.
Well, like we said, we are fanatic about collecting data. And so, you know, if the data is not used, it doesn't do anybody any good. Mm-hmm. And so we have to make sure that we can use that. And Daniel has been back with us here for 7 years on the ranch, and that is kind of his expertise. Mm-hmm. And we've come a long way since he started that, so I'll let him talk a little bit about how we put that data to use and what it has done for us.
I think probably our focus on a lot of our collection is maybe not trying to absolutely get as much out as everything, but doing more with less. Mm-hmm. And so what does that mean? When we put an emphasis on birth weight, for example, we're fall calving at this very moment. I'll probably have 15 calves by the end of the day, mm-hmm. and we're here inside. You know, we're not babysitting those cows. They're out in 900 acres doing it themselves. Mm-hmm. You know, we can go all the way through the end with different things. We're having cows that are breeding back quicker and better, and so in turn we've shortened all of our calving seasons to 45 days. It means we have more time to do other things as opposed to just babysitting our cows. Mm-hmm. Those same cows are taking less feed, mm-hmm. and they're weaning calves that are just as big, if not bigger. And it goes back to that idea: we're doing more with less, and in doing so, we're honestly trying to make our lives a little easier. Mm-hmm. Or if not easier, you know, we've doubled in cow size since I've been back, and we, if anything, have less help on the ranch than we did before.
Mm-hmm. So talk to me a little bit about what the data collection looks like and what people can expect from you guys in the future.
One of the things we're really making a big push on right now is feed efficiency. Mm-hmm. In the past, you know, it was very easy to measure, you know, a bull's test when he came on to feed, when he left, and how much he gained. Mm-hmm. The problem is we didn't really know what the consumption was to get to that point. Mm-hmm. Recently, we've been feeding all of our cell bulls on a grow-safe bunk system. Mm-hmm. So we're not only able to measure what those bulls gained over their test, but also exactly how much feed it took to get to that gain. Mm-hmm. And we're finding some really exciting things in some of our bulls. You know, we had 100 heifers that closed out just here recently, and we had a conversion of 5.7 to 1 on heifers. The cost of gain in the low 60s. Mm-hmm. It was actually 17 cents less than that yard average mm-hmm. for that month. Those are tremendous numbers in that segment of our industry, and we're finding individual bulls that are even converting in the 4s to 1. It's just going to be implementing, you know, or reproducing those genetics. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is something that is going to be only more important as we go down the road into the future of mm-hmm. feeding a growing world with less resources. It's going to make us more competitive with our competitor proteins. Mm-hmm. I think this is absolutely something that is necessary to keep our whole industry moving forward. And I'm excited to be involved in the front of it.
Thank you, Daniel. And we'll be back after these messages from our sponsors.
We started farming in 1970. It was harder work then than it is now, a lot more physical work and the wear and tear on my knees and my body. Now here I'm 70 years old. Well, I started having knee pain here 4 or 5 years ago, and so I was looking for a stem cell clinic, and lo and behold, my good friend John Farley and Ken Wood, who'd been customers and friends for a number of years, opened their clinic, and in about 2 months my heel was a lot better, and then at the end of 3 months and then going on 4, why my knee started making significant improvement, and it's sure been a blessing, because before I had the stem cells, well, I'd be driving a tractor, and if I sat in a tractor for 2 or 3 hours, when I got out I'd have to stop and get the kinks out of my knee and shake it, and today that's not a problem.
KFRM is one of the largest farm radio stations in the nation, dedicated to informing and entertaining rural listeners from northern Oklahoma to southwestern Nebraska. You can catch KFRM in many ways, of course, 550 on the AM dial, streaming at kfrm.com, or on your smartphone by going to the TuneIn Radio app, or on Ag AM in Kansas on Tuesdays and Facebook every day of the week. KFRM, tune us in. You'll be glad you did.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities, big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm here with Joe and Daniel again to talk about how they market their genetics. So to start off, what are some things that you do in preparation for your sale?
Sale preparation really starts right after the first of the year. Even though the sale's kind of towards the end of March, it really sneaks up on us every year. Probably the one thing we do that we're kind of proud of is we develop our bulls in an old abandoned rock quarry, as opposed to just being kind of in a lot in a kind of more confined area. They're really out in big 20-acre traps that are nothing but piles of rocks for those bulls to go get hard-footed, get athletic, kind of help them build muscle as opposed to just putting on fat. From there, it starts, from ultrasound testing to semen testing to trick testing to kind of getting cleaned up for the sale to lot tags. I figured last year our yearling bulls went through the chute 17 times between the first of the year and the bull sale. And so it's kind of an all hands on deck, lots of frazzled minds when we're finally to the day. But it's always a rewarding experience to have people accept your program like they do.
So talk to me a little bit about the logistics of the sale, when it is, and where people can find more information.
Well, our sale this year is going to be March 16th. It's always the fourth or third Friday in March. And we will offer a little over 200 bulls in this sale. And it's, like Daniel said, it's an all hands on deck. And on the marketing end of it, we rely heavily on electronics. Our website, mushrushedangus.com, we keep updates on there all the time on what's going on and what's happening in sale preparation. We have a Facebook page for Mushrush Red Angus that also we kind of go along and detail things as we've been going. And so that and we do some electronic newsletters, print advertising, but we encourage anybody that has a question to get a hold of us either by phone or email. They can find that information on our website. So there are many options available to people to access our genetics during our sale. We do use DV auction, so the sale is broadcast online. They have that option. The best is to be there in person, and so they can see the cattle and do their bidding. And if that's not available or they don't have access to their computer, they can be on the phone with us, or they can leave a bid, an absentee bid. We will visit with them ahead of time about their criteria and make sure that we do the best possible job to get to them the genetics that are going to do what they need to have them do. So, whatever their situation is, we'd be happy to visit with people, or they can go to our website and see what they need.
All right, thank you guys so much. And thank you for watching this episode of That's My Farm. We've been here in Strong City, Kansas, talking to the Mushrush family. And stay tuned next week for the next episode of That's My Farm.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.